very restful weekend. It was quite an interesting one. And right now it's time for trends in the papers. Let's look through the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. My name still remains Omobola Sandra, and of course I don't do this alone. Fuad Sahid will be joining in via the phone line in a bit to give analysis to the stories that we're going to be treating this morning. We'll do this up until 8:30. Take a break, and by 8:40 we are back for Milan Focus, where we discuss we select one or two major stories from the papers, put some spotlight on it, and then hope and then wait for your contribution, actually, for you to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts as regards the focal points for the day. So today being Monday, the 22nd of January 2024, it's a tradition here that every Monday we bring you up to speed as regards the major stories that broke over the weekend. So a lot of stories happened, across Saturday and Sunday. So let's bring you up to speed. These are the trending stories or trends in the papers from the weekend. Now we start with Saturday. Breaking: police parade kidnappers terrorizing Buhari. And that was taken from The Sun. There's a lot of, conversation around that on X. Governors in joyful mood as Supreme Court rejects challengers' cases. Of course, that's from The Punch. Kidnappers demand 30 million naira ransom for victims abducted in Nigerian Army estate. I was taken from Business Day. Kwakwanso, others remain expelled. NNPP insists. Interesting days ahead. Well, that's what I was taken from Vanguard. Ovoreboy, Abiodun, Sule, Yahaya, Idris, Sani win at Supreme Court. And that's taken from Vanguard. Those are governors of different states. Enugu police burst kidnappers' den, arrest 3, recovers arms. I was taken from The Sun as well. Birth certificates. Nigerians raise concerns as NPC, that's Nigeria Population Commission, collects controversial levy in cash. I was taking off Premium Times. And finally for Saturday, fresh crisis looms in PDP over national secretary position. I don't know when crisis is going to stop looming in the PDP. But then let's move on to Sunday. Let's see what we have there. ACF rejects relocation of FAN headquarters to Lagos. That's Arewa Consultative Forum. ACF rejects relocation of FAN headquarters to Lagos. That's Airport Authority. That was taken off Daily Trust. We also have Lekki Port welcomes first Marks vessel. I saw that. That was huge. That was large. That was humongous. Yes, that's the biggest container vessel. It was quite an interesting one. Good one for Nigeria. All right, that was taken off this day. Ibadan explosion. Federal government await forensic investigation, says minister. That was taken from Vanguard. FCT police arrest kidnapper and rescue victims of Punch. Economic crunch. More Nigerians still vulnerable despite palliatives. Well, is there palliatives? Good question. I was taking off Business Day. Time to deploy tech against insecurity scourge. Nigerians tell federal government. I don't know about that, but we'll have a conversation later. NAF. That's Nigerian Air Force. Airstrikes neutralized notorious kidnapper Jamari and gang members in Kaduna. That was taken from Nigerian Tribune. And this report was compiled by Kelvin Nwafili. Now let's go on to the major stories that are trending for this morning, today, Monday. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what we have this morning. This is still Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos, and I'll be right back.
You are listening to the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Good morning.
Thank you for staying with us. We have our papers here, so let's look through the major stories trending for this morning. But before then, good morning, Said Fuad. How are you doing?
Yeah,
First son of Lagos State. What is going on?
Sandra, how are you doing?
Well, how's the weekend?
Good weekend. It was a nice one on political roundtable yesterday. But all in all, it was a good weekend. At least a weekend to reflect on national issues and keep myself up to date.
Yes, it
Things
was.
are happening very, very fast.
It was a very good weekend. I especially enjoyed on political roundtable. I especially enjoyed the security, conversation, state policing, community policing. I was going all through the weekend. I was just looking at the pros and cons. A lot of conversation around that on X. Nigerians. I can't really say what exactly Nigerians want at this point. I just want this insecurity to be solved. But there's just the consensus as regards, should we go for state policing? Should we not go for state policing? The fact that it to be taken advantage of, the fact that governors can't be trusted with the welfare and all of that. That conversation was hot over the weekend on X. But yesterday on political roundtable was quite an eye opener, the fact that people are even going as far as even community policing. But one thing that I know for sure is that insecurity is the biggest issue right now.
Well, you know what, Sandra, on the issue of state policing or private community policing, yes, you have different opinions. And I think the biggest concern for Nigerians is the discipline that will come with it from our political class. That's the biggest fear. It's not, whether we like it or not, it's gotten to the point where it's looking like the most reasonable thing to do to secure ourselves. But the fear is, the political class, our politicians, how are they going to handle it? The abuse of power that might come with it. For example, I say that, just imagine the behavior of some of our governors who don't have complete control of the policing in their state. Just imagine that they can now control the police. What would happen to the opposition? So that's the biggest fear of the average Nigerian out there, even though we seem to have all agreed that we just have to look at the option of state policing. But I'll just end up by saying that, Nigerians may not know what they want yet on the issue of insecurity, but they actually know what they don't want. What they don't want is them being kidnapped, bandits ransacking their homes, and then having insecurity widespread across the country. That's what they don't want. We do not know what we want yet to tackle the problem. But what we don't want is the problem of insecurity.
Exactly. Quite agree with you, therefore. Thank you very much. Now, let's move on to the stories that we have trending for this morning. I'll start with the Punch newspaper. Kidnapping epidemic. Banks enabling rapid growth of abduction in industry, says experts, as Nigerians demand more from Tinubu. Security chiefs. Abuja family confirms ransom payment. Let's have a conversation around this. For last week we were discussing how do these people, get cash to actually pay this ransom. Is it transfer?
Yes. The ransom,
what's the modality as regards the ransom payment? Is it cash? Is it transfer? Do you create a credit card? Do you create a debit card? I really don't know. So now we have this, story here on pages 2, 4, and 5 of the Punch, and we have that security experts have accused commercial banks of encouraging the kidnapping epidemic in the country, as some ransoms are paid into bank accounts. Shouldn't there be some sort of flagging? I know the AML Act, that's the Anti-Money Laundering Act, there's something there that says that if an amount of a certain, or if money of a certain amount is deposited in an account, either for an individual or for a company, it should be flagged to, the relevant agencies, authority. Exactly. And so what we have now is, and these ransoms, they're not 2 million naira, it's not 500,000 naira. We're talking ransoms of 50 million, 100 million, 30 million, and all of that. So experts and analysts who have backgrounds in military, intelligence, and policing are also stressed that abduction have become an industry that is enabled by financial institutions that receive ransoms. What do you think, Fuad? Do you think banks, are complicit, financial institutions generally?
Well, it's unfortunate that we're now talking about how ransom are paid, how they are moved into banks and all of that. But again, it's an aspect of this problem that we have to critically look at. How these monies eventually get to the bank. Even if these ransoms, you get them to, these bandits or these kidnappers get them in cash. But they would have to find
that huge amount of that large amount of cash. Where did they withdraw it from? That's another question.
But eventually they would have to find a way to get them into the banks. And if experts are saying commercial banks are culpable, then we have to look into that aspect too. Because we've always said, how did they get this money and all of that? And there's no way some of the cases would not have been done with, the workings of some very corrupt officials in our commercial banks. So again, it means that we have to look at that area and find it. And you must ask yourself, Sandra, all of the NIN, BVN, linkage of bank accounts and all, what's the essence of all of those things? Because I remember most of the troubles Nigerians went through linking their bank accounts, BVN, NIN, and all of those kind of
they
things.
told us that the reason for NIN, BVN, and all of that is, to curb kidnapping and insecurity and all of that. And
then why do we now have kidnapping, this widespread kidnapping across the country, despite all of that? I know the irony of it all, Sandra. The man that ended that entire process, Mr. Pantami, that
is now crying out.
At that time, it caused a lot of Nigerians pain, anguish, suffering, frustration to get that thing done. But he kept saying that, look, we know why we are doing this. The reason we are doing this is to ensure that, look, kidnapping is all blah, blah, blah. The same man was involved in the raising of ransom for kidnappers. What a big irony, Sandra. So, again, we have this problem. We have to find a way to solve it. And solving it first lies on the desk of the president. He's the man that needs to do what he needs to do to secure Nigerians. And that's the first job of government, as enshrined in the Constitution. So it's a big problem. We have to look at how monies are gotten into these banks. But it's not just, it's an aspect of the problem. But I think there are also other issues that we have to look at in solving this particular problem.
All right, then security experts are saying financial regulators should live up to their billing by ensuring that the know your customer policy, that's the KYC element in bank opening and all of that, is effectively implemented by banks. And Adamu Kabiru, who is the managing director of Beacon Consulting, said, so even our financial regulators have a responsibility to ensure that banks play the know your customers element very well. The fact that we also have here retired Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Ojukwu hinted that banks might be complicit in the kidnapping business. Ojukwu said, and I quote, crowdfunding for ransom payment has been hyped. It is not a pleasant solution. It sort of reinforces the crime. The banks are probably involved in all of this. For how do such funds get pulled, and where do they end up? Bank customers have been finding it tough to get cash for their transactions. So how come millions are being sourced for kidnappers? So I suppose that banks and NFIU, that's the Financial Intelligence Unit, thank you, should begin to ask questions on how these funds are trafficked and where they end up. There's technology to track, such funds. We also have the chairman of Association of Corporate Affairs Managers of Banks, Rashid Bolarinwa, could not be reached for comments on allegations against banks. However, a top official of the bank who chose to speak under condition of anonymity said that ransoms allegedly paid into some bank accounts might have been paid into tier 1 accounts with inadequate know your customer requirements. But I have a question. I wish we had a banker with us, because tier 1 accounts have we have 3 tiers of our account opening processes. Tier 1 account is for the illiterate. Tier 2 is for semi-illiterate, while the tier 3
there's a particular amount that is that kind of
that's
account,
where
right?
I'm going to. So tier 1, the documentation is limited. It's very, very limited.
Yes.
But I know that there's a certain amount that there's a restriction. There's a cap on the amount that can go in. So I really don't know this argument of the fact that tier 1 accounts are the ones that are majorly
tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3. The reality is that there's a problem with our banking sector that we need to fix when it comes to the issue of kidnapping. I think that's just the story.
All right, thank you very much. Because
you'd be surprised that it's not about tier 1.
It's not exactly. You can't pay 30 million naira into a tier 1 account. It's really, I don't want to believe that. But then
tier 4.
Finally, on this particular report, banks have to wake up to their responsibilities, because a security expert here is saying during the EndSARS revolution, the CBN was able to track down the sponsors of all of that.
And now people were cooking food and all that. And
yes, now vendors of the hashtag EndSARS, they blocked all their accounts. Some of them were even restricted from traveling. So how much more people that are collecting ransoms, from kidnapping? That's why this is serious serious issue, and that's why security experts are calling on commercial banks as complicit in this kidnapping epidemic. The story is on pages 2, 4, and 5 of the Punch newspaper. All right, we also have here goods destroyed as fire guts 10-story Lagos market building. That happened at Mandela's Lagos Island. A very unfortunate one. But thankfully, no lives were lost. But of course, goods were
safety standards
destroyed.
for most of the buildings on the island. We still have
In
to
Lagos
talk
Island.
about.
What? All those, the cluster is too, they are
It's
too
just
close.
clustered up, all modeled up. And I'm not sure everybody pays real attention to safety standards when it comes to fire and things like that,
Because it's one too many. This is not the
And
first
I know
time.
these are
What's
people
happening?
who run businesses in millions of naira, multi-million naira business,
Multi-million, yes.
and they don't really consider safety as a priority.
Well, I don't know. We keep putting this thing out. We keep putting it out. You own a business. Please ensure that all appliances are turned off before you close your shop. Because most times it is these things that lead to these things. Maybe one plug was left on or something was left on or something. I really don't know. Because these are not residential areas where we say somebody was cooking or something. So if only
If
people...
you look at the way these buildings are clustered, Sandra, and the entire environment, how everything are modeled up, you begin to understand that, look, when things like this happen, it's difficult to make any form of rescue or any effort to, put out the fire.
They're too close to each other.
I think this one is called the Mandela's building or something. We got the news yesterday, unfortunately.
Well, the story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here on the front page of the Punch, there's a lot of kidnapping stories that we have. Biniore Expressway kidnappers freed my father after 3 million naira ransom, says son. That's on pages 4 and 5. NSCDC foiled 48 bandit attacks on schools. That's the Civil Defense Corps, and that's coming from the Commandant General, and the story is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. So he's saying that the agency has averted over 48 attack attempts on schools nationwide by bandits, and he said the newly implemented security strategies of the NSCDC would see a drastic reduction in cases of school attacks, and reports that there have been a lot of insurgent attacks, especially starting from the 2014 Chibok situation in Borno State, but then this I guess thank you to NSCDC, but shouldn't there be some sort of synergy between security agencies? What are you doing that's working? Share with other security agencies. What do you think? What the NSC is doing that seems to be working for them, sharing this strategy or the tactics or these ideas with other security agencies, the sister security agencies. What do you think? Hello? All right. Okay. Well, we'll see how we can reconnect before there. This is Milan 98.3 FM, and you are listening to Trends in the Papers. We're looking through major stories trending on the front pages of our dailies. We're still on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Fuad.
Yes, I'm with you, Sandra.
Okay. Welcome back. All right. Moving on from that story, forensic probe of Ibadan blast to determine next action, and that is on page 9 of the Punch. So the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, headed by Dele Alaki, has restated its resolve to get to the root of the explosion that rocked Ibadan last week. So the minister, Dele Alaki, in a statement by his special assistant on media, said the federal government is committed to unraveling the real cause of the explosion to determine the next line of action. And they have also deployed mine inspectorate officers to the scene of the explosion to join other security agencies to unravel the cause of the explosion. So I'm guessing now, Fuad, or what do you think? The fact that the explosion has been linked to explosive devices used by illegal miners, and that's why the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development is coming into play, bringing in Mine Inspectorate to look into what exactly was the cause of the explosion in Ibadan.
Well, I think the issue now is not really about the cause of the explosion. I think the issue is to ensure that, look, illegal mining that now endangers the lives and properties of the people is put to a complete stop. And that's why the Minister of Solid Minerals now has to come in and look at the problem of illegal mining. There are also security concerns to it. I think in one of the papers it was reported that the NSA Nuribadu will be leading that investigation. I'm like, no. I think the NSA Nuribadu cannot be everywhere and anywhere. Here is the National Security Advisor. It should be more of an advisory role than being at the center of everything. Remember when there was a political issue in Rivers State. The NSA was part of it.
Was there. Yeah.
In Ondo State, the NSA was part of it. Now there's an explosion in Ibadan as a result of illegal mining activities. The NSA to lead the investigation. I'm sorry. The NSA is supposed to be more of an advisory role. It's not supposed to really be seen. It should be more of intelligence sharing, strategy, tactics, being at the back end, giving ideas to people who are supposed to be in the field. Or probably the army chiefs, the security operatives, and all of that. I don't think that NSA Ribadu is getting too much involved in everything. Like, he wants to be at the center of all the conversations, and that probably would distract him from the core of his job. I agree that the Minister of Solid Minerals has a serious job to do to structure the mining industry to the point where it doesn't become a problem to the lives and properties of Nigerians. And that job, I think, he has not really been able to do. That's Mr. Adili Alake, with all due respect. But again, with the issue of Ibadan, I think the idea is completely clear. The governor already has the intel, activity of illegal miners, and I think it's more of the police getting involved with this, arresting culprits and making sure they are prosecuted. And then the governor has said that more than 200 buildings are currently going through integrity tests to be sure that they don't further endanger the lives of the people. You understand what? So those are the right things to do. What has caused this we already know. And I don't think that the NSA should be leading such an investigation, because there are a lot of other things he needs to pay attention to. The issue of kidnapping is there, banditry is still there, the killings in the North Central are still there. I think there are more important things he needs to put himself into. And like I said, that is why it's called the NSA, National Security Advisor. It's supposed to be an advisory role, not to be at the center of everything. But again, I think that we just have to be more procedural about these things and be more deliberate about achieving results, not just for the optics. Oh, I just want to be at everything so that they know I'm working.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Fuad. The story is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. And now we're moving above the masthead of the Punch. We have here foreign medical school bills gulp $1.58 billion in 6 months. That's coming from CBN. Stories on page 11. We also have here Tinubu panel asks states to suspend low revenue taxes. Well, that is on page 11 of the Punch. So just very quickly, let's see what that report gives us. The Presidential Committee on Taxation, Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform says it is meeting with state governors with a view reaching an agreement for states to suspend some low revenue taxes. And they said this move would lead to the suspension of nuisance taxes by states and local government authorities across the country. And this is coming from the chairman of the committee, Taiwo Oyedele. And he said the nuisance taxes were not added value to, or adding value to the state's coffers. So nuisance tax is a fee imposed as a percentage of the selling price of goods or services payable by the customer, transmitted by the seller to the taxing authority. So I go and buy cake, and there's a percentage of that's the price of the cake that I pay and the seller then now has to remit to taxing authority. So that's what nuisance taxes. So suspension of low revenue taxes forward, especially on transports of goods from the north to the south and vice versa, which is negatively affecting the poor. So can we see a good one to
whatever tax reforms that we are going to do to better the lives of Nigerians? I think we should just do it. The tax reforms man is been saying a whole lot of things. I think in one of the news, he also said that area boys can be converted to tax collectors.
Tax collectors, yes. And it's the same interview. This same interview.
Eh?
It was in this same interview where he said this as well.
Where he now said that the area boys can be converted to tax collectors and be paid. And I'm like, I think this one is a bourgeoisie. He's too elitist in his thinking. He doesn't understand that these guys cannot do anything structured. You understand what I'm saying? These are guys who enjoy the chaos that comes with their job. I'm sorry, it's just what it is. They are happy to run around, jump on vehicles, tear down their side mirrors, and all of that. You now tell them, oh, you're a tax collector, you'll be paid that salary, and well, yeah. You understand? But again, I think that whatever reforms is able to come up with that will help government revenue, also create some ease of doing business. These multiple taxations that are completely frustrating business, we need to look into it, widen the tax net more, also look at the issue of tax waivers, and then get a more structured tax system for the country. I think it's a welcome development. That's the job he's been given to do. As a committee, as a leader of the committee, and I think the committee has been doing that. But we wait to see what the results of all of these ideas and deliberations would amount to. So I really don't have too much to say on what he's saying.
Okay, thank you very much. Nuisance taxes, especially taxes that are not really, generating much revenue for the government, and the fact that some of these taxes are not even getting to the government coffers, is just collected, and there's nothing happening from that. So there is the need to stop it, especially those imposed on transport of goods from the north to the south and vice versa, as it is negatively affecting the poor. More details on page 11 of the Punch newspaper. And finally, off the Punch, Dangote refinery plans supply to 150,000 Ipman stations. All right, finally we're getting something from, yes, I'm with you.
I think the outlook is looking very good, Sandra, for local supply.
Things are looking good generally. Should we still be cautiously optimistic, or should we be happy?
I think to like the model, the business model. If the focus is for local supply, at least even if it doesn't immediately affect prices, we can be sure of some stability in terms of supply and all of that. So I think the outlook is looking good. Now that the focus, at least from what you're getting, is to have supply for the local market, and that's a very good one.
All right. So the Dangote Petroleum Refinery is to supply fuel to about 150,000 retail outlets operated by IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, following a meeting between the management of the refinery and executives of IPMAN. There have been some back and forth meeting and all of that between them. Now, on whether IPMAN discussed pricing with the management of the refinery, they said, no, we didn't discuss the price, but all that we know is that the price is going to be a little lower than what we have been selling. So that's why I was asking if we should be happy, or we should just hold on first for the rollouts to come, because that's where I was going with that question. So as regards pricing, but since they said that pricing was not discussed, what do you think we should expect?
There's no way pricing will not be discussed now, Sandra. If you want to buy something, won't you discuss how much you're buying it, how much you're selling it to you?
Okay.
I don't know the idea of pricing not discussed. You understand what I'm saying? If they've agreed and they're in talks as to getting supply from the refinery, at some point they would have to discuss how much they're buying it. You understand what I'm saying? Again, we have to look at this particular story from the context of the monopoly that we have from the NNPC, who is the sole importer of the product for now. So how would this affect the monopoly of NNPC? Would this create some form of competition? How would this, of course, also affect the fact that the NNPC may not now be importing the kind of volume they were importing before, and all of that, So all in all, one has to, begin to look at the positive side of all of things. I think we should be a bit optimistic that this, at least in the minimum, in the immediate, would engender some stability in terms of local supply. And then we cannot begin to talk about maybe reduction in price and all of those kinds of things. When we get there, we'll start to discuss all of that. But at least let's look at supply for the local market first, which I think is a very good one.
All right, thank you very much, Fuad. That's all we can take. That's all from the Punch newspaper, actually. And now we're moving on to the Guardian newspaper. We are listening to Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're looking through major stories trending on the front pages of our dailies. Don't forget that we are live on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. So as the conversation goes on, you can drop your comments in the live chat section. We'll take them in Milan Focus, during Milan Focus. Now, the major headline on the front page of The Guardian: skepticism over inflation, insecurity, and economic outlook. This story is on page 6 of The Guardian newspaper. So, what is the cause of skepticism? We have riders here. Markets await Cardoso's long-term inflation target ahead of February MPC meeting. Monetary policy, that is. Also, we have new external members of committee to be unveiled before meeting. Import-dependent companies faltering. Forex market rigged against us. Operators cry out. So, the president is starting to look like a poor economic manager as widespread skepticism sweeps across the economy less than a month into the year, a situation many pointed to as a turning point in the failing economy. If the current administration fails in its promise to reverse the downward macroeconomic trend, to give hope to millions of Nigerians who are struggling to pick their bills, it will be a traumatic contradiction of Tinubu's rating at last year's poll as a good economic manager. Before I go on, Fuad, poor economic management, is that the cause for so many woes that we are currently facing? Inflation, poor economic outlook? Do you think, can we attribute it to poor economic management? Okay, well, let's move on. I'm sure Fuad will be joining us very soon. So, in the face of daunting challenges, there seems to be too many missing links in the technical arm of economic management to articulate a cohesive policy thrust. There's a lot to take away from this particular story. Already the odds are rising against the national economic managers. Just last week, which was among Naira, which was among the top 3 worst performing currencies last year, after losing 49% of its value, printed its weakest value, trading at about 1,370 naira to a dollar. Last week we were Naira was running at about 1,200, and as at yesterday night it was almost at about 1,400 naira, and that's dollars. We're not even going to pounds yet. All right, so as it is now, there's just a lot to take away from all of this, from this particular report, especially as regards the economic outlook of Nigeria. But Fuad, do we have Fuad back? Hello?
I didn't get that.
All right, good to have you back. Now, I was just asking that, can we attribute all of our economic woes and all of that to poor economic management from our government?
Of course, yes.
I can barely hear you, Fuad. I don't know what changed. I don't know what happened, but please, can you revert back to whatever it was that we're doing before? I can barely hear you. Oh my goodness. Hello?
Sorry?
Hello? All right. Let's reconnect. Let's reconnect with Fuad. I'm sure somewhere along the line there, the network has totally messed things up. The currency plunged after long-awaited exchange rate liberalization. As it is now, a source close to the current CBN leadership faulted the position of members, arguing that MPC is a mere technical arm of the CBN that had been unduly elevated in recent years. That's another question that I have. Do you think so? Because what we have now is that a recomposed MPC will trigger mass litigation from members who have been left out of monetary policy conduct in the past 4 months without any communication on their status. So there's a big question around the MPC, and that's the Monetary Policy Committee, and this is a serious conversation that we need to have, because what we have now is that there's barely any input from independent members of the Rate Fixing Monetary Policy Committee. Let's see if we have Fuad back. Hello, Fuad.
Yes. Can you hear me now, Sandra?
Oh, it's still very low, but I can manage it. Hello. Very, very low.
Is it better now?
No, it isn't. Let's just move on. It's very low.
Okay, all right.
But we'll just manage it. Yes. So I was asking as regards poor economic management. That's what I was discussing. As regards our economic outlook to inflation, insecurity, and all that.
You can't fault that kind of bad business that the whole of this that because of poor economic management. And what that story is saying is that look, if something is not done to arrest the situation, then people now begin to doubt, the capacity and the credentials, what was told to Nigerians about the economic management capacity and capabilities of this particular president and the entire cabinet. I think last week I was saying that, look, people said a whole lot. Even the president, if you remember when he was presenting ᴏᴜᴛ to us, he had said that, look, he's a man with so much knowledge, he has the experience, he has the knowledge and all of those kind of things. And people are still expecting to see him do that, bring that experience to bear in the management of the CBN. And then, of course, the extension, the crisis we have in the forex market. And even generally for the president, too, the idea that, look, he was the former governor of Lagos State, transformation in Lagos State, and all of that. Again, I'm sure the supporters of the government will tell you it's too early to begin to judge or begin to assess their performance. That we need to give them some time, really. Even the president has said that all of these reforms will take some time, and that by the end of 2024, begin to see all of the results. But Nigerians are a bit apprehensive. They are not quite sure if they have the luxury of time to continue to wait to see the results of some of these reforms that the president is talking about. But whether we like it or not, the problem we are having now is as a result of poor economic management. It may not be poor economic management of this particular government, but of course, government after government have not done well in managing our economy, and that's why we are in this crisis. The big question now is, does this particular government now have the solution to all of these problems? That's the question people are asking.
All right. Well, there's still a lot to take away from this particular one, because I was going to go into the MPC conversation as well. That's the Monetary Policy Committee.
I think there's one coming up in February. So wait.
Okay. All right, then. Let's move on. We don't have so much time. That story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And dear fellow Nigerian, the inflation rate as of now is 28.9%. Just so you know. All right. We'll just leave that at that. That's very unfortunate, but that is our reality at this time. Okay, we also have here on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, Lagos State bans single-use plastics, styrofoam, warns against indiscriminate storage of combustible items. So all these takeaway packs and everything that we all use, with immediate effect, that's what the story is even saying here. The fact that people just indiscriminately dispose of this pack, so it's causing a clog in our drainage system. That's the conversation that we have. But then it's a serious problem for our environment. So the Lagos State has banned the use of plastic styrofoam. That's the 괜ᴜᴜ that we used to buy food. All right. So let's all take that into notice. That's on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, we have here.
But Sandra, just 1 minute.
Yes, I'm with you.
I agree that we have to look at reusable materials that can decompose so that they don't clog our drainage and all of that.
Okay.
I think it's a good one. But it comes to waste management in Lagos standard, there's still a whole lot of problems that government needs to pay attention to.
Waste management.
Up to now, we are still seeing roads that are being littered. Waste in the middle of the road. Sometimes this waste, you have every type of waste, dumped on roads, dumped in different parts of the city, and they remain there for days without anybody taking them away. So whatever happened during the PSC arrangement of Dr. Fᴜဃᴜ as governor, and then I think there was a problem when Ambodi came in, but I think that problem is still there. We are still not managing our waste. Visionscape problem. Different parts of the city have waste litter between street, roads, for days without anybody taking them away. So we need to look at that. So yes, it can't be jumping the gun, agree, styrofoam, blah, 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 conversation. But what about people taking away ordinary waste from our roads? And how we are still not able to do that properly in Lagos. Our daily mega.
Well, I mean, thank you very much, Fuad, for bringing in the mega city conversation again. But that, just as you have rightly said, waste management is not being managed properly here in Lagos. I mean, sanitation, generally speaking, the PSP conversation. What happened to Visionscape? I've been asking, but nobody seems to have an answer to that. But then that's away from the ban of plastics and styrofoams and all of that. I even have here that the public should report stockpiles of any form of dangerous goods to a number or the nearest security agencies. That's
report what? Sorry, I didn't get that.
A stockpile, like if you see, just a pile of any form of dangerous goods, so just report it to 07000 safety or the nearest security agencies around you. So they have commenced a Safety for You campaign aimed at making safety a priority for every Nigerian by banning styrofoam. That's amazing. All right, the story is on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's move on now. Leadership hurdles for opposition parties merger and mega structure. That's on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. It's the big story here. The option of collapsing party structures in opposition parties to evolve a mega party that rivals the ruling counterpart is not new. Often challenging for the marriage of convenience are leadership concessions and what becomes of the union hour after power has been captured. Some years ago, I think 8 or 9 years or so ago, there was the marriage of between CPC and AD and some other factions from different parties and all, which birthed the APC that we have today. So Fuad, as regards this mega structure, this merger, this coalition that we keep talking about and all of that, we keep asking this question that if these mega people come together and they actually actualize this dream of this mega structure, who's going to be able to step down for who, which concessions are going to be necessary in order for it to be able to work out? Are we going to be having another Emilio I collapsed my structure for you, so it's my turn and all of that? So what do you think?
The thing is that at this party,
Ford, could you please speak a little louder so I can?
This party, this so-called political party, how mega is it?
Say now or when they become one?
And even now,
on their own.
Sorry?
You mean on their own?
As a party individually.
Okay.
Party,
okay.
How mega are they?
Oh, okay.
Even the big PDP, the quote and unquote almighty. How mega is PDP now?
Well, they have state governments.
Join them, to form a mega party to wrestle power. As we see, the leadership of the PDP still has a lot of questions around. There are still crises around the PDP. A lot of the
Fuad, as we speak, we're not even the conversation as regards Kwakwanso still being a member of NNPP is also still in the air.
There's a problem with even the NNPP.
Yes.
Owners of the party said they suspended
Kwakwanso, who is supposed to be the chief, the leader of that party.
That was what we thought until the crisis came within the party, and then you had some people saying that they were the real owners and founders of the party, and that Kwakwanso cannot continue to decide for them. Okay. So as if you are not even sure, the membership of Kwakwanso don't be surprised that going forward, the NNPP the leadership of Kano State will change from NNPP to another party. Even the Labour Party, as we speak, there's still serious division between Aburi
two factions, Apapa and Aburi. Okay.
As to who is the rightful leader of that party.
Yeah.
The PDP has its own problem. The PDP just read the story. That says even the secretary of the party is still in contention. So, you have to look at it. Now, if you even look at leaders of each of these parties, would Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, for example, be ready to work with Kwankwanso and then Mr. Peter Obi? Can they work together? Can they concede to one another? If you understand what I'm saying, Sandra, can they actually concede leadership to one another and say, okay, you will be the leader of the coalition? But for me, I even think that we are jumping the gun.
Okay.
I'm thinking that before they start to talk about merger or no merger,
okay,
what they should be talking about now is electoral reform. How do you reform the electoral process? The point where you go to the polls and you are sure that what the people do in terms of their votes is what will count. How do you ensure the votes from the people count? How do you ensure security on election day? How do you reform the entire electoral process to make it work? Not because at the end of the day, even if you form a merger and form a mega party and you go into a failed electoral process, it is still the same story we are going to get. So I thought that all of these parties should first, put their energy and effort on talking about electoral reforms before talking about coming together to form a mega party. But I think politicians don't really care. They just want to form a party and hope that they win elections. What about the process of the election itself, the electoral process? Is it okay? They feel it's okay, and that they can just form a mega party and be a part of a failed electoral process without complaining at the end of the day?
Well, the reporter of this story is asking this really interesting question because we have to wrap things up. I still have other questions, but then I have here, and I quote, "I wish to see them coming together, but the truth is, can we say that Atiku is that popular in PDP to convince the party of a merger? Or can Peter Obi trust his followers to the extent of thinking that they will follow him to join Atiku?"
Big question, Sandra.
Big question. Most of the supporters following Obi are leftists, and Atiku has been a capitalist since the beginning of time. Besides, what does Kwankwanso have to offer? Who will trust him when it is being speculated that he's on his way to join APC? So there are parts of the contradictions Pat Utomi should consider and work on, and it's just a lot to take away from this. And this report was brilliantly written by Muyiwa Adeyemi, who is also who joins us in the Situation Room on Thursdays.
Together, yeah.
Yes, no, he is the one who wrote the report actually.
Okay, who wrote the story?
Yes, he's the one who wrote it. Yes. All right. But that's that big question I'm taking away from that particular, report. Is Atiku big enough or popular enough in the PDP to convince the party of a merger? Or can Peter Obi trust his followers to the extent of thinking that they would actually follow him? Would the obedient follow Obi to join into any coalition? Exactly, because we had that conversation last year. The father is the obedience probably even bigger than Peter Obi himself. All right, the story is on page 4. It's a very interesting read. I hope you guys, I hope you can actually look into that story. It's in the Guardian newspaper. Well, that's all we can take off of the Guardian newspaper, unfortunately. And finally, I have here on the front page of Vanguard, wrong time to fall sick in Nigeria as cost of medicines skyrocket. So please take care of yourself, as Fuad will always say. Please, Vanguard, it's the wrong time to fall sick. Please drink enough water, take a lot of fruits and vegetables. Yes, please, and try to stay away from whatever that is not good for your health. Please, very, very important. It's the wrong time to fall sick at this time now. The story is on page 5 for those who want to get into the story. And also I have here how abuse of ways and means worsened inflation. This would have been a very interesting story to read. It's on page 23 of Vanguard newspaper. There's a host of other stories, of course, but stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We have to take a break now. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you, our dear listener, you get to be a part of the conversation. In the meantime, this is Mainland 98.3 FM, and we are the sound of Lagos.
If you buy market from your customer, and they put small something on top for you. Shebi na jara be that.
Yes now, na jara.
So come imagine say you buy one thing, then carry 8 give you. Wetin be that one?
Ah, that one na over jara now.
Bam! Hey, hey!